I'm in Cocoa, Florida, and this place is the factory where SpaceX built some of the first Starship rockets. In fact, there is the nose cone for a Starship, and you can see by comparing to the building next to it that that's about 3 stories tall. This large building in the background was constructed here. It's called the Windbreaker. And it's actually tall enough that you can stack a Starship and assemble it inside that building. This is one of the temporary tents that was put up here at the time, and this steel building was here from before. This gate right in front of me opens automatically when you leave, but you're not supposed to go in there. And this gate up here with the checkpoint is where you're supposed to go in. That nose cone would make a pretty nice, like, 2-story house with a nice attic room with that little window in it. I like it. So this is a better view of the Windbreaker. And the Windbreaker is basically to keep the Starship out of the weather and to prevent the wind from taking heat out of your welds as you're welding it. That again is one of the temporary tents that was set up here. This steel building was here before. This was a metal fabricating company before SpaceX moved here and used the place for building rockets and added a lot of extra infrastructure. So now we'll follow one of the possible routes that the rocket might have taken from here to over at the Cape where it would be launched. This isn't the only route that was considered, but this road does have some nice wide radius turns, which is nice if you're going to be moving something big like rocket stages. We're stopping at this T intersection because this is one of the problem areas with this route. There's this power pole, which isn't a big deal. The lines can be run underground for a short distance here to get them out of the way. And there is a bit of a radius at this T intersection, but it's not as wide as you'd like if you were going to move rocket stages, say, horizontally. And I think at the time, the decision really hadn't been made whether to move them all this distance upright or not. So across the street there is some room to swing a little bit wide in this corner, and if necessary that drainage ditch could have been made into a culvert for a short stretch. Here you can see a big truck making this corner, and there's plenty of room for a much longer vehicle, although a super heavy booster laying on its side would need a longer radius of turn. They may not be able to be laid on their side without first having the tank pressurized, but if it's pumped up with compressed air, it could definitely be moved on its side. That bridge wasn't here at the time and could have been made higher, and that over there is the exit ramp that the rocket would go the wrong way up that exit, and then it would go along this highway here, 528, until it got to the river. So this is the Indian River, And this big wharf was built here so that the rockets could be unloaded from whatever road transport they were on. They would come along the highway, those lower lanes that are going the other way now. It would come the wrong way down those lower lanes. And then to this wharf where it would be unloaded on some giant barges and then taken through the barge canal that's on the other side of the river going parallel to this highway. And while I'm here, I've got a view of the vehicle assembly building. This is where the rocket would basically be taken to from the build site. And it would go not in a straight line, but that's basically where it needs to end up. So this is the wharf where it would be unloaded onto barges, and that's the highway it would have come along. So this is the build site, the rocket factory in Cocoa, Florida. And this is the road I traveled down in my car. And this is that T intersection that we stopped and looked at. And then the rocket would go this way. There is a new bridge that's just been built here that didn't exist back then and could have been built higher. So the rocket would go down this road and then the wrong way up this exit ramp from State Road 528. Then the wrong way along 528 out to this little island here that has the wharf. And there's two barges there that were used to build the wharf. This imagery is about a year old. It's changed. And there was a second possible route from the build site by building a road through this undeveloped area and then coming out to the beach line. And I'll show you that in more detail in a few minutes. This is Port Canaveral here. There's cruise ships, cargo ships, whatnot comes in through here. Sometimes rocket stages are barged in. Actually, when SpaceX lands rockets on the drone ships out in the ocean, they come into Port Canaveral and pull up here and unload the rockets. And then they're taken by road. All of this is Canaveral Air Force Station, north of the port. This is Cocoa Beach down here. And this is a Trident submarine base. There's a lock here at the end of the port that can open to let boats through, to go through the barge canal and then up or down the intercoastal waterway. The lock was installed because the cruise ships didn't like the tide rushing through the port when they were trying to dock. And so this lock was put in here. So now I'll back up some more. The place where the original starships were being built in Cocoa, Florida. This is the city of Cocoa. Over here on this side, this is the Indian River. This is all Merritt Island in the middle. My house is about there. And then this is the Banana River between Merritt Island and Cocoa Beach. And all of this is Canaveral Air Force Station. So this is that State Road 528 or A1A that's coming across the Banana River, across Merritt Island, across the Indian River. Right here is where they were going to unload the rocket onto the barge. the exit that it would take, actually tracing my way back to the build site. Let's start there. The build site is right here, next to this little lake. And there were several possible ways of getting the rocket out of there. The one that was decided on was to take it along the roads, and they would temporarily close State Road 528. And it could go the wrong way up an exit ramp because it couldn't go under the bridge to go the right way on the road. It could go the wrong way up the exit ramp down State Road 528 till it gets to this point where the road meets the Indian River. And a big wharf was built there so that the rocket could be unloaded onto a barge, and then the barge would take it through the barge canal. And this is the barge canal. This goes from the Intercoastal Waterway to the Banana River. And all the big rocket stages that get moved by water, at least the ones that go up the Intercoastal Waterway, come through here into the Banana River and then over to Cape Canaveral over there. And then up the Banana River, and I'll back out some more. Then there would be several options for unloading at different docks at Canaveral Air Force Station, or there is a canal that was cut up here to launch Complex 39 and the VAB. And this is where stages from the Saturn V rocket were brought in by barge through the Banana River and then through this little canal that was cut here over to the VAB. So I'm going to zoom back in, and I'll kind of map out the path for the rocket. So just for fun, we'll zoom in on the build site. It's been years since they had done anything here. You're looking down on it, and you can see a bunch of the stainless steel rings that were welded to be stacked into rockets. And this is the big building that was built, the windbreaker, so that they could stack these rings and weld them without them being out in the wind. And the wind takes heat away from your welds and just makes it more difficult. Rings and smaller things could be welded inside this big building. And there's four of the temporary tents on site. There's these two. There's this one here, and another one here. So that's the build site, and the rockets would be rolled out onto the street here, and there were different ideas on how to do this. One plan was to cut a new road through this wooded area here to this street, and then make a large radius curve here. Take power lines and stuff underground and put in a large radius curve here. So it could be run along the Beachline Raceway. And I can move the map a bit. Moved along the Beachline Raceway, and then See, vegetation is cut back here, so a large radius curve could be built right here at this corner. And then it could come up State Road 528, this road the wrong way, and then this is that exit from 528 that normally you go this way and off, but the rocket could go the wrong way up here and then across US 1 over the bridge. And now I can move this some more. See, across this bridge. And the wharf is right here. So that's that big concrete wharf. And when this Google image was made, there were the two barges there. And one barge is gone and the other barge is kind of over there. So this is where the rocket would be loaded onto a much larger barge here. And then taken across the Banana River and then down the barge canal. I'll back off a bit. So there's the wharf where the rocket gets loaded onto the barge and it goes through the barge canal. There's a drawbridge here that can open for it. And then across Merritt Island on the barge canal and then this way up the Banana River. This is the main part of Canaveral Air Force Station, but this whole peninsula really is part of the Air Force Station. And you can see all the different launch complexes out near the beach. They like to launch rockets near the beach so they don't fly over people's houses and whatnot. So you can see there's been areas dredged out, right, different channels, where they've had to move different equipment. This is all very shallow water in here, but these dark stripes, these dark areas are places where they dredged it out to make it deep enough to push barges and stuff in here. And this is the dredged channel that goes up to Launch Complex 39. See, there's Pad 39A, Pad 39B. This is that dredged channel. And it comes up to this basin here where they unloaded stages and stuff from the Saturn V rockets. And then you can kind of see the shadow that it casts on the ground. This is the vehicle assembly building here. And you can see the crawler way, where the crawler carried the Saturn V and the launch tower out to the pad. The space shuttles also went along that crawler way. And I guess starships will do that now. So that's the channel there. This is, what bridge is this? I believe this bridge is a drawbridge. Some are very, very high, some are drawbridges. And all these little shallow areas and islands are man-made. And it's when they would dredge out these deep channels, right? See, here's another place they could unload the rocket stages at this wharf that's been built here at Canaveral Air Force Station. And in order to dig out this deep channel, they would dredge material out of the channel and pile it up here. and create these little islands called spoil islands. And you see them all along the intercoastal waterway as well, where they had to dredge out a channel. So here are the two landing pads from the SpaceX rockets, where when they come back to land, they'll land on these two pads here. So just for fun. This is Launch Complex 40. This image was taken a while back. This is a big metal building that SpaceX constructed, and they do the assembly of the Falcon rocket and attach the payload and the fairings and stuff in this building. And then they roll it out horizontally to the pad. And actually, the erector is out here. It'll be leaned from horizontal to vertical with this thing onto this launch pad, and then up it goes. And right here, this place, if the boosters are going to come back and land at the Cape, right, they'll launch from here, Launch Complex 40, and the SpaceX booster landing pads are just like, well, they're not far away. I can tell you exact, right? Slick 40, and 5 miles, about 5.5 miles south of where they launch is where they will land, if they come back to the Cape to land. And there's a few good places to watch from. Right here at this causeway, it's about 11 miles or so. There's a spot you can pull off here, this causeway across the Banana River. A lot of people like to go to Jetty Park, which is right here at the entrance to Port Canaveral. That's 10.6 miles. Right? The causeway is about 11.8 miles. You can watch from over here in Titusville. That's 13 miles. That's a bit further. And my house is right about there at 13 miles. So that's the path. Cocoa through the barge canal, the wrong way on 528, through the barge canal to that wharf, then a barge up here, probably to the VAB. And all of that transportation issue goes away if you've got a new factory for building the starships right here at Canaveral Air Force Station. So that's where the new production facility is going to be, and that's why it's been moved. For perspective, once again, here's Cocoa, Merritt Island, Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, the Indian River, the Banana River, and this is the original build site here, where the rocket would have to go the wrong way on State Road 528 to that wharf that was built, through the barge canal, Once you had it on the barge, it wasn't too bad. Then up to the VAB. But this little stretch from the build site through public roads and such was going to be a nightmare. And then the wharf, transferring it to the barge, and then back off of the barge over here. So the new build site on this map is right about there. So the VAB is there, Launch Complex 39, Launch Complex 40, where SpaceX is flying Falcons from. So this is much more convenient, and this location, everything here is part of Kennedy Space Center or Canaveral Air Force Station. Actually, this side of the Port Canaveral is a little bit of a secure area. There's a Trident submarine base there and whatnot. And nobody, unless you've got a special pass, nobody goes north of here. All of this is basically government NASA controlled. So the little hop on public roads here was going to be a nightmare. And then with the barge all the way up to there and unloading. So moving the rocket factory to here is a really, really good idea. It simplifies transportation of the rocket greatly. And here we'll get a closer look at where it is. So once again, this is the new rocket factory. The Vehicle Assembly Building, Launch Complex 49, Launch Complex 40 where, Launch Complex 39 and Launch Complex 40 where the Falcons are flown from. So from here it's very convenient to get to Launch Complex 39. And this other road isn't too bad that could go to Launch Complex 40. So now we can take a look at the rocket factory. This imagery is about a year old. So a lot more stuff has been done here in the past year. But even a year ago, you can see fixtures for assembling the rings that the Starship is made out of. There's another fixture here which either has a partially completed nose cone or possibly a jig for making nose cones. And 3 of the temporary tents. And the other part of the property has all this concrete that, this is a year ago, has been poured for another big high bay for assembling, vertically assembling the rocket. And from recent imagery that I've seen of the site, it looks like it's being laid out very similar to Boca Chica, Texas, with the exception that the area with the 3 big tents will be replaced with a big metal building. And here, this road is new. It's 3 lanes wide. It's striped for a lane each way and a 1 lane wide median. You can see the striping here. But it's really asphalt, 3 lanes wide. And I can back out some more. See this intersection here. there's room to do a very wide radius turn off of here and onto here, or here. Actually, this is 3 lanes wide and that's 2. There might be a reason for that. But a large radius turn can happen there, and then most of the roads that would have to be traveled, at least any of the turns, already have large radius. There's really nothing in the way till you get to the VAB. And let me see if they changed those roads back then or not. So this is the road that we'd be coming up, and yeah, if the destination was not, yeah, this is how it would go, obviously. So this turn is set up for wide radius turns, which you need if you're going to be moving a great big rocket booster. Let me back up. Yeah. So you come down here, and once again, wide radius turns all the way into the bays at the vehicle assembly building. This is the VAB here. And see, this is the wharf where stages for the Saturn V rocket and Starship, if it was going to be built at the other site, would have come. And again, you can see the wide radius curves in all the roads that would be needed to transport rocket stages. Unless they're going to transport Starship upright, which is definitely a possibility. That's the way they've been doing it at Boca Chica. Actually, that makes a lot more sense. Structurally, it might not be able to support itself if it was laid on its side, and unless you pumped it up with like compressed air or something, like the old Atlas. Those rockets, if you laid them down on their side without pumping them up with compressed air, they were so thin they would crumple under their own weight. So basically that's it. That's the new factory, the VAB Launch Complex 39. Launch Complex 40, you'd have to go around this way to get there. So that's where the Falcon 9s are launched, and right down here is the landing pad for when the stages come back and land. And I guess this concludes our tour of Cape Kennedy, the city of Cocoa, Cocoa Beach, Port Canaveral, and Canaveral Air Force Station. I think this video has gone on long enough. Signing off.